Parles.
Day of November. How about that? The final Monday of November. I'm Jeff Parles, Alex White alongside. We're happy to be with you as always. Wrapping things up for Week 12 in the NFL. We have lines for the conference championship games in college football this week. We have early lines in Week 13 in the NFL. And boy, we're going to have a discussion in the game that's going to happen in Philadelphia next Sunday.
Oh, yes.
Right out of the gate on that. But first, Alex, before we get to tonight, the news today in the NFL, Frank Reich gets canned out after 11 games. Second shortest tenure for an NFL coach in a single job, period. The only other one out in San Francisco, the replacement for that fired coach was Bill Walsh. Worked out okay for the 49ers in that one. Reich's also the first coach to be fired midseason back-to-back years since the AFL and NFL merged in 1970. So, some dubious history here for Frank Reich. And now for Carolina, I mean, Tepper and the Panthers. David Tepper bought this team in 2018. There are now 7 different coaches now with the interim and Chris Tabor. It is a very toxic situation for the number 1 overall pick in Bryce Young, who by any measure this year has stunk. And the future is very dim for these Carolina Panthers, who this upcoming week, by the way, are up to 5.5-point underdogs. Or excuse me. Yeah, I did read that right. 5.5-point underdogs against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers next Sunday. The Bucs going the wrong direction as well, 4-7 after their loss to Indy yesterday.
They did hang in there, though. I thought they were going to come back and make that a little bit more of a game. But, yeah, you're right. It's really tough for Carolina right now. So they fire their coach. I don't really see this going the way it has gone for other teams, like the Raiders, who rallied together. Because who does Carolina really have around Bryce Young? I mean, they really have no protection for him on that offensive line, and he doesn't have a lot of weapons. What do you think happens this week?
Well, for this week against Tampa, if this week is survived in the survivor pool, I thought Tampa was going to be the play. Now, it still probably will be. Pittsburgh against Arizona is for teams that a lot of people have left. Yes, you could take the Chargers against the Patriots. Good luck if you do that, no matter how bad New England has looked. Good luck if you happen to do that if you've survived this week. The Rams against the Browns. The Rams are 5 against the Browns right now next week, which is a huge number. Which I know there's quarterback issues in Cleveland, but boy, that is a monster number for a team that I'm not sure is all that good in the Rams. KC, 6.5 at Green Bay. Could use Jacksonville as 8-point favorites against the Bengals. Boy, what a sentence I never thought I'd utter on this year, Alex. But, boy, it is tough. Again, you're in the nitty-gritty if you survived all the way through this weekend in Survivor, and I know there's a good chunk left in a lot of pools out there, including yours truly with Minnesota tonight against the Chicago Bears.
How are you feeling now with the 12-3 favorites? Right?
Not great. I feel the same that I have all week with Minnesota. Again, this is not the big one. Not the big one in town. I'm not in that one. Didn't have an entry in there. If I did have an entry in the big one in town, I would be out already. I'd be done. I would have had Cincinnati 2 weeks ago. I would have been out. Wouldn't have even gotten to Thanksgiving. So irrelevant if I would have made it through this week because I would have already been out if I was in the big one in town. All right, let's go to it. Alex mentioned it. 12 out of 15 games have been covered by the favorites so far this week. Naturally, I had 2 of the favorites that did not cover yesterday. But Minnesota taking on Chicago tonight. It's 3. It's 43 behind us here at the South Point. They're 43.5 as well on the total. Mostly 3 now in the market. Those flat 2.5s are now, or excuse me, those 2.5, those 3 even monies are now gone. It's now 3 flat across the board. There's even a 3 minus 20 out there in one book that's nationwide. So the money is starting to come in on the Vikings. Josh Dobbs makes another start. Finally lost a week ago to Denver. Alex, this is one of those. It all depends on what number you got. At the 4, at the 3.5. It's a pretty clear take for me with Chicago. At the 2.5, it was a lay for me with Minnesota. Now at 3, if you made me bet it, I would lay it with Minnesota. I don't have a lot of confidence on that, but if you made me bet it, I would lay it with the Vikings. The Bears played a great game for, Ryan, how long was it? 57 and a half minutes last week? No, 57 and a half good minutes last week. Yeah, okay. All right. Fair enough. 57 and a half minutes where they were clearly the right side and found a way to lose that game to the Lions last week. Thankfully for Chicago Bears spread bettors last week, that fumble made its way through the end zone and didn't get recovered in the end zone for what would have been the worst beat of the entire NFL season this year. But Alex, again, I'm not going to have a play with these current numbers out there.
No, you said it perfectly. A take on 3.5 or 4 for the Bears and laying 2.5. I actually did lay the 3 with the Vikings. I think they are the better overall team. The Bears defense, really good against the run, right? Second run defense in the league, but not so good against the pass, allowing 26 points a game. And I think that Minnesota is going to have their way, be able to throw the ball with Joshua Dobbs. I actually looked at another one too, Jeff. Tell me what you think about this.
Go ahead.
Minnesota team total, 24.5 here at South Point plus 130. I think if the Bears are going to hang in this game, it might turn into a little bit of a shootout back and forth. So I just don't see the Bears blowing Minnesota out. I think that is kind of off the board, and I think it could be a really close game, or I think Minnesota might take a little bit of a lead here. So I do think they can get over 24.5 in their 3 games with Dobbs. They're averaging 26.3, and I just said it, the Bears allowing 26 points a game.
So with Minnesota this year, of course, remember last year, the 13-4 with the best record ever in one-score games and a negative point differential and a first-round playoff loss to the Giants a year ago. Minnesota this year has played all but one game within one score. The only game that was a multi-score game was a 24-10 win against Green Bay a few weeks ago. Of course, the game that Cousins ruptured his Achilles. Jaron Hall had to come in, and then we know what happened with Jaron Hall. Suffers a concussion on the first drive against Atlanta. Not to be seen again this year on the football field in all likelihood, with Dobbs getting in and playing well and miraculously winning that game with no practice time. One thing that's for sure with this Minnesota team over the last few years, these games are going to be close.
Yes.
And again, if you got north of 3 on Chicago, you did well here. And I think if you laid that 2.5 with the Vikings, you did well here. I'm sure when Vinny's in here, Vinny Magliulo will be with us in 10 minutes. I'm sure he, in the back, loves me here saying that this game probably lands Minnesota 3 after what happened to them yesterday with Philadelphia winning by 3 against Buffalo, where everyone got paid if you did that thing right. They go with the Bills-Eagles game. So, it's interesting now for Minnesota as well, Alex, just looking at this, because we can really start talking playoff picture right now. Vikings are 6-5. They're currently the 6th seed in the NFC. You win tonight, you're 7-5. With a remaining schedule that features a game here in Vegas after the bye week, the Vikings are better than the Raiders. I think we can say that now. At Cincinnati, the current version of the Bengals may be one of the worst in the NFL just because of Jake Browning's lack of ability, more so than ever what's around him. 2 games with Detroit and the Packers at home. A win tonight puts Minnesota in dynamite playoff position. Because if you get to 10 in this NFC this year, Alex, you're getting in. And I don't even think you're sweating if you get to 10 wins.
And you know what? I love this Minnesota team because they haven't lost hope throughout all of this. Like you said, last year, they had the record winning the most one-score games, and they still, all the way through until they were knocked out, they still thought they were going to win the Super Bowl. And then this year they started on the opposite side, right? They lost a few games to start the season, never gave up hope. They lose their starting quarterback, and they're still they're just rallying around Joshua Dobbs. So I think they come in here, and you're right. They know how important this win is for their playoff hopes and putting them in a good spot.
Yeah, for Minnesota, again, remember, going into the year, 8.5 was the win total. It did not move all summer long. Didn't move. Kind of just shows you had the right number out there the whole time. And Minnesota, again, 3 more wins. A 500 record these last 6 games. It'll go over. And I still think 9-8 will probably be good enough in order to get in to the postseason. All right, we'll circle back to this game in a little bit. Don't you worry, everyone. Let's look at this real quick. Going back to yesterday, Alex. Really, from a betting perspective, yesterday you mentioned it. The big notice, as we know, 12 out of 15 games so far have gone away at a favorite. If Minnesota covers tonight, that will be the first time since a minimum of 30 years of data that the favorites will have gone 13-3 against the number in a 15 or more game slate. Of course, we've only had 16 games in the slate since the Texans came into the league in the early 2000s, so a little over 20 years now. Really, more than anything, the biggest takeaway from yesterday, and I'm going to go to that game that was right at the top of that list, and that was Pittsburgh, where, yeah, they only scored 16 points. I get that. But they looked like an NFL offense. They went over 400 yards for the first time since the 2020 season. They finally outgained someone, and they outgained Cincinnati by 199 yards in that game. Pittsburgh wins outright as a 2-point favorite. Alex, it's just something about this team with the Steelers, and you look at the remainder of their schedule, and forget the remainder. How about just the next 2 weeks? 5.5-point favorite against Arizona this week. You're going to be a similarly priced favorite against New England the week after that. Mike Tomlin can get to 500 after 13 games, which sets up now what is going to be, to me, the most fascinating coach of the year debate there is right now. And those markets aren't up right now. They'll repopulate to the places that have them on Tuesday. Coach of the year is the hardest award to well, you can argue MVP is pretty hard this year as well. But to me, there are so many great candidates as opposed to there not being enough legitimate candidates in the MVP race this year, Alex.
Yes, absolutely. And great candidates in the coach of the year, too. And I just can't believe what the Steelers team has done. So I finally jumped on the bandwagon, laid the points with the Steelers yesterday, was very happy with that outcome. And you're right, they did look like an NFL offense. They looked really good. So there's been something off all along. And, so I've been fading them a little bit. But now I can jump on board and say the Steelers team, they are a playoff team now. If they can keep this going with Pickett and their guys offensively. We know their defense has been there the whole time, keeping them in games and, creating turnovers. So, yeah, it's interesting. And what Mike Tomlin has done year after year is just unbelievable.
In breaking news, as we always know here on this show, Mike Tomlin has never finished under 500.
Yep.
We know that. Wow. Pretty crazy again for Tomlin. And this Steeler team that, I don't think they're any good, but they're going to make the playoffs at this rate in the AFC. Get yourself to 10 wins. You're probably good. And be interesting to see what that Indy game is lined at in a few weeks, especially if the Steelers handle their business the next 2 weeks against Arizona and New England. I'm curious to see how that one be lined because the Colts right now, hold a playoff spot.
Yes,
they hold that
do.
7 seed in the AFC right now, amazingly enough, for a team that had no expectations coming in to this season. One other note here. On the AFC North real quick. We still don't have anything on DTR yet of the full extent. Cleveland may be in trouble now with the way that there's too many injuries to the quarterback position. And I know P.J. Walker won those games earlier in the year. You look on your screen right now, they're a 5-point under. They're a bigger underdog than I think anyone expected going into this Ram game now. They're going to be a home dog to Jacksonville in 2 weeks in all likelihood. And then look, you got to handle your business in those next 3 games where we know the Bears aren't any good. Houston, all of a sudden now we know that's not an easy game. Houston will be favored in that one. And the Jets, who have no semblance of an NFL offense right now. So for Cleveland, with that loss to Denver, 29-12. By the way, scoregami on that one, Alex. First time we ever got that final score in NFL's history at 29-12. I'm concerned about the Browns. I am concerned about Cleveland's long-term well-being now with this playoff race because of the continuous injuries at the quarterback position.
It's a shame, too, because their defense is, if not the best, one of the best in the league. And I really thought they were going to go very far this year. So it's tough. We'll see about DTR and if P.J. Walker can step in. But you're right. It's not an easy stretch here on out. So I am a little concerned about the Browns as well.
The other results, obviously, from yesterday in the game that we all had our eyes on yesterday, the Giants beat the Patriots. Tommy DeVito has 2 wins as an NFL starting quarterback now, 10-7 in that one. Giants, one of the few underdogs that actually covered. They cover and went outright as a 4.5-point underdog in that one. But the result of the day, and really the biggest game of the day, and this leads us into looking ahead
Yeah.
for the biggest game in the NFC this year coming up in Philadelphia. San Francisco goes to the Eagles. The Eagles escape again. They beat the Bills 37-34. Depending on what number you got Buffalo early in the week at 3.5. Good job, you win. You got Philadelphia at the last moment at 2.5. Good job, you win. The book's nightmare with how that game finished. Eagles by 3 and a pretty easy over when it was all said and done on Philly winning 37-34. Alex, I said it to you before the show. I think it's time for Sean McDermott to go in Buffalo, where, again, if you've listened to me across the platforms I've been on, I'm lower on Buffalo than basically anyone in the market is. I think Josh Allen is a turnover machine when things aren't going well, and when things are going right, like yesterday, they still find ways to lose games that they shouldn't lose. And then when push comes to shove, that all lands on the head coach, more so than Allen, than the GM, than anyone. That ends up with the guy who's calling the shots in the middle of the game, and that's Sean McDermott. We have seen Buffalo lose too many games like that over the last 3-4 years where they were clearly the right side yesterday.
Absolutely.
I know that the Eagles ended up covering if you had them 2.5. Buffalo was the right side. They legitimately had, again, this doesn't go on McDermott, Gabe Davis runs the wrong route.
Yeah.
That's a game-winning touchdown if Gabe Davis runs the right route. I don't know if that falls on coaching more so than Davis just not having the right play in his head. But too many mistakes like this has happened for Buffalo over the last 4 years. And they need an offensive mind in there to be that next head coach. And Buffalo plays Kansas City and Dallas back-to-back after the bye. Alex, they're going to be 6-8. This team should never be 6-8 at any point, at any year, unless if Josh Allen had gotten hurt. And here we are with the Bills. I think they're missing the playoffs. And I think McDermott deserves to be out of a job.
I can't argue. They are very much in trouble for the playoffs, but they could beat Kansas City. They have some of their own problems.
They're talented enough to beat everyone on their schedule still.
Right. So I need to ask you, why is it that the Bills get the ball first in overtime?
Sure.
Of course, Davis misses that pass. And why don't they use Josh Allen the way that the Eagles use Jalen Hurts? Why doesn't he run that ball into the end zone and score a touchdown? They kick a field goal, give the Eagles the ball, which I knew it was over at that point, and Jalen Hurts runs it in for a touchdown.
Well, again, that's always been the thing with Josh Allen, where Buffalo has attempted to protect Josh Allen from himself. And we saw in the overtime, he had that ridiculous run for the first down on the I think it was the second third down conversion on that overtime for Buffalo. But again, Gabe Davis was wide open.
Yes, he was.
Wide open, and he ran the wrong route. And again, I'm going off Romo said, in all honesty, Romo calling Bills games at this point. He shouldn't be calling Bills games anymore. There's too much bias towards that team when Tony Romo calls those games. But regardless, it's a valid point. And we saw last week, I thought against the Jets, Joe Brady called a really good game. Get the ball on the perimeter against the Jets defense. If they have a weakness, that's where it is. And I thought for 2.5 quarters, I thought Buffalo called a great game again. And look, the overtime, they had to play.
Yeah.
Davis ran the wrong route, or Allen threw the ball to the wrong spot. One of the two things happened. I'm going to lean towards the way that Davis was acting on the sideline, that it was more on Gabe Davis than it was Josh Allen at the end. But, yeah, I look, for Buffalo, I never thought they were the best team in the NFL. I know that power ratings had them number one. I know that they were the co-Super Bowl favorites going into this year. They were the Super Bowl favorites last year. I never thought they should have been treated like that within the market. And this year has been, I think they're now getting, the fact that they were at one point a 3.5-point dog in Philadelphia this week kind of shows me that the market is starting to treat them more correctly. I will be fascinated to see what that line is with Kansas City 2 weeks from now, where if that's anything short of 3, I will be laying it with KC. I can tell you that right now in that one in KC a week from now. But let's get to the big one, though, in the NFC.
Yes.
And we'll get Vinny's thoughts on this in a second when we bring him in after our break. Philadelphia is 2.5-point underdogs at home right now to San Francisco. And I know for people that are just joining us to maybe learn a little more about sports betting, or they're big fans of Alex White over there on that side of the desk. This even to me, and San Francisco by almost any measure, when healthy, is the best team in the NFL. And I have no argument with that. I'm a little surprised I'm not surprised San Francisco opened 1.5. I am a little surprised the bettors are being as aggressive as they are. And I would not be shocked if this touches San Fran 3, which that would be an auto take on Philadelphia. And if you beat me Niners, so be it.
Oh, I completely agree. I have San Francisco as the number 1 team right now in my power ratings, and I still only made them a 0.5 point favorite in this one because it is in Philadelphia, and that means you got to give them a little home field in that power rating. So, yeah, I think that line is a little bit aggressive, and I will be looking for a 3. Do you think we'll see a 3?
I hope we do. There are. I will say, though, the way the market plays, and we know behind us, we're never going to see more. It's always 11-10. Except when Chris and company go to minus 105 during the NCAA tournament and later in that Super Bowl week. But boy, there's -2 and there's 2.5 minus 20 out there. There's 2.5 minus 15 out there on San Francisco. That tells you that this thing's going to 3 at some point, at least at some shops. And if that's the case, it's a take. And I would imagine we will not be alone in taking Philadelphia at 3. If that were to happen.
As Vinny says, don't blink because it probably will get snatched up really quick. I mean, this Eagles team is 10-1, and they don't always look like the best team on the field, but they find ways to win, right? And that's what a championship team does. So I love the Niners. I think they are fantastic on both sides of the ball. But we have to remember they had a little stretch. They had a few hiccups. They lost 3 in a row to good teams. So you got to give the Eagles a little bit of respect here, and I think it'll be a really good game.
I will say for the Niners, again, those 3 games, they were not healthy. And they lost Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel midstream in Cleveland. Now, granted, I'm still not saying that's an excuse to lose to P.J. Walker. They still should have found a way, and if Booty makes the kick, they would have found a way to win that game. They were outplayed in Minneapolis a few weeks after that. All right, whatever, injury. They let Tampa hang around, but they were clearly the right side in that game. And they hammered Seattle. I mean, Seattle got 7 points off of a ridiculous play defensively. So this Niner team, it looks like the Niner team we saw dominated at the beginning of the year. I'm very interested to see how this game plays out 6 days from now, when we'll have all week to talk about it. And we'll have some moments to talk about it with our guy, Vinny Magliulo, who joins us next here on Sports by the Book here at the South Point studio.
We have 11 amazing restaurants featuring a wide variety for every price range and appetite. South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or, if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day, plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, you can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups. Or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south-of-the-border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside. Or maybe you're in the mood for seafood. Big Sur Oyster Bar has fresh seafood prepared right before your eyes. Savor freshly shucked oysters, crab legs jambalaya, shrimp and lobster. Beers on tap and a selection of fine wines are perfect to pair with your seafood favorite. Whether lunch or dinner, you'll love this fun atmosphere, located just off the casino floor. Ready to shake things up? Step back in time and treat yourself to one of the oldest restaurant chains in the country. Steak and Shake, famous for original mouth-watering steak burgers and hand-dipped milkshakes in a variety of flavors. For some old-fashioned fun, try Steak and Shake.
Welcome back in. That's the back of our heads here at the South Point studio. I'm Jeff Parles. Almost the side of Vinny Magliulo's face. Vinny Magliulo, the Sports Betting Hall of Famer, with us right now. Gone Gaming. Alex White is also here as well. Champion of last year's Last Man Standing in college football. Vinny, have you guys recovered from what the bettors did to you this weekend?
The only thing longer than the hot dog line was the cashier's line. So, yeah. Hey, you know what? That's okay. It happens sometime, and Thanksgiving weekend is always there's an emphasis on the giving. It seems to be. The thing about Thanksgiving weekend is, if you look at a typical football week, again, Thursday night football, you have the Thursday night game that starts the week,
sure,
right? Going and culminating with Monday. Well, remember this. We actually had 4 fuses to light this week. Detroit, right? Then, of course, you had the Cowboys. Then you had the Niners. And then you had the Dolphins on Friday, right? I will tell you this, that we tip our caps to the bettors. Had the Lions won and covered on Thursday, would have been close to an all-time record for the bettors this weekend.
Well, and that's the ironic part.
Culminating yesterday with the Eagle game falling 3 the way it did, and then of course the
Ravens scoring a touchdown. I don't have to cover the number last night.
But again, you're in this business for as long as Chris, Jimmy, and I have. You see these things happen. I remember still to this day. I think it was 1988, 89. We called it the Thanksgiving Day Massacre, where the entire left side of the parlay card came in. Left side's always the favorites and overs. Yeah. I think we're still paying those.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. It's pretty ironic where the book, you guys could not have gotten a better result to begin this weekend.
Yeah.
With Green Bay not only covering, but winning outright.
Yeah.
Against the Lions.
Killed every teaser.
Like, legitimately was the best result you humanly could have had. And then it turned into this. The last.
It really shows you. It speaks to the power of the betting public, because what the bettors did, and to their credit, was okay. That game is done.
We're starting over.
And remember, there was a nice little gap between the two games for the bettors to be able to start over. Professional bettors did not have a particularly good weekend, and oftentimes, or it's hard for the professionals to overcome the betting public. It's such a mass. And then, with this is where, people say, so when you start seeing, people talk about, the books make their living off of parlay. They love for you to bet parlays. Yeah, of course we do, right? The whole percentage is higher on parlay. But when parlays come in, you know what? The bettors do very well, and it keeps them coming back. So it's a double-edged sword. The good thing is there's always another week. We've got tonight. Full disclosure, tonight is it's actually what's a matter a little lesser of two evils. And the Bears, we need the Bears tonight. We're still going to lose some money, but it's a matter of losing less. But again, that happens when you have this much volume on such a strong weekend. But these weekends, for new operators out there, they have to happen sometime, because this is what creates more business.
Well, you mentioned it. You need the Bears tonight.
Yeah.
Even though it's been taken down the ladder on Chicago here from 4 to 3.5 to 3, all the way down to 2.5. Now back up to 3.
So it's become a toggler back and forth between 2.5 and 3. Jeff,
so anything but Minnesota by 3. More so than anything, right?
Well, I think
that would be the worst result.
Minnesota by 3.
Yeah.
But, that'd be, again, Christmas is a month away. Not really. 'Tis the season, folks.
I will say you're in a pretty jolly mood for
Look, what do you do? You pay. You pay. That's what, you know what? When people hit a slot machine, we pay them. When they, you get a 30-minute hand on the dice table, or you get a hot 6-deck shoe. You pay? This is the nature of the business.
Right? Look, the hot 6-deck shoe will be the first one of those I've seen probably in about 5 years, Vinny. So
really?
I will tell you that.
By the way, and 3 to 2.
Oh, well, that's the most important.
That's right.
3 to 2.
3 to 2 on your blackjack. But listen, these things happen, and if you're going to survive in this business, you've got to weather it. Was everything done procedurally correct? Yeah, you adhered to the limits and everything. But look, people they win sometime. People cash tickets, and that's part of it.
It is interesting to me, Vinny, because Jeff's been saying it, and you said the Sharps didn't have a particularly good day yesterday. He said there's not really a sharp side with NFL this season, and
well, no. To your point, on the one hand, yes, but when I say that, because as you know, Alex, it's a matter of betting numbers, right? It's not betting the teams. So when for instance, like with the Ravens last night, when it went to 3.5, it was a take, right? When the Ravens went to 3.5 point favorite. Professionals like yourself, listen, I have to take 3.5, right? Or you don't have to, but you're more inclined to take the 3.5. Okay, it didn't matter, right? I mean, when you look at,
tonight with the Bears,
3.5, right? Or you could have took 4, right? And we'll see what happens there. But another one that you look at is the Chiefs. When the Chiefs went to 10, right? The Raiders were a take.
So I just want to explain myself real quick on that. We talk about spots in college football all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Those still exist every single week on every single college football card. And I still think they're pretty good for the most part.
When you mean like spots to take a dog or
anything, whether it be going against a team on a look-ahead spot, going against a team on a letdown. We've had this conversation on the desk. In the NFL, there's no such thing as a look-ahead spot. Well, for the most part,
right?
There are letdowns,
absolutely,
but they're not the same as a college football letdown.
The emotional element in the pros is different because of the seasoning of the players than it is in college. Okay, are there letdown spots? Yes, Cowboys losing in Phoenix to the Cardinals earlier this year. Letdown spot. Was it a look-ahead spot? Not really. I think, pros are more conditioned. You do have look-ahead spots, though, in college because, again, they're just not as seasoned and they're younger, right? But but again, getting back to the pros, it's about, especially when games are around that key number of 3. You're certainly not going to lay it a 3.5 with a favorite. If again tonight or yesterday, where the Ravens again opened 4, and then it started toggling between 3.5 and 3. You're not going to lay 3.5. Would you take the 3? You're more inclined to take the 3.5 as a professional. Now, in some play with the public, they're convinced. The public is convinced on a side. They're going to bet that side,
of course.
And guess what? They did this weekend. And their conviction paid off.
And again, like more so than anything, more of what my point is on that whole thing is that these tried and true things that have worked for years in the NFL, betting the NFL for professional bettors, I don't think it's as good now with the way that the league is.
Okay, so
that's really
your point,
the biggest thing.
That's okay. Good point. Now, but what's different too, though, is the home field. Road teams are performing better now than they did years ago. I mean, again, when you look at the home field advantage today compared to, let's say, a generation ago, all right? I mean, it was much different. It was almost automatic to start at 3 for the home team. Like the Eagles, you were talking in the previous segment about the Eagles-Niners, right? If you look at the power ratings, let's say, for instance, I've got the Niners about a 1-point favorite. So you'd say, okay, 3 points for the Eagles. Why aren't the Eagles a 2-point favorite at home? But you're also anticipating, and you realize today that they're a strong team, especially like the Niners. They're better on the road. Okay, teams are better on the road. So you've got to toss that aside. Are there still some good home field advantages in the pros? Yes, but across the board, if you average the NFL home field advantage now, even with some teams like Kansas City had one of the strongest home field advantages. It's come down this year.
Not anymore.
Okay? Seattle has come down this year. If you look at the average home field advantage in the NFL this year, it's about a point, maybe a 1.5, but it's probably closer to 1.
Well, now the best
on average.
Well, now again, this kind of just shows how this is a moving target now, where the best home field advantage this year has been the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, it's also a product of their of their competition, who they're playing, because they just destroy the teams they're supposed to.
Dallas hasn't lost a home game in more than a calendar year now.
Well, you could say that about Tennessee to an extent. They haven't lost a home game yet either, and they're not nearly right. The Titans are undefeated at home.
I'm going to be honest with you. I did not even realize that.
But I'm just saying. But it's not the same. It's not like they've got this enormous home field.
No, they look
advantage.
So Tennessee's one home loss came in London. They played the Chargers.
That's not a home game.
No. That's why I put it in air quotes, Vinny.
When they're in Nashville, okay, they're undefeated.
They're not the London Chargers? The London Titans?
No, not yet.
Not yet. That'll be the London Jaguars.
They'll be the London Jaguars before the London Titans.
All right, Vinny. But going back to this Niner Eagle game.
Yeah,
because I can already tell you what's going to happen here from the betting perspective.
Go ahead.
Most of the sharps are going to be on San Francisco this week, because of the ways that Philadelphia has won these games close.
Mm-hmm.
And there are plenty of people texting me yesterday like, I'm betting San Francisco regardless of what it ends up being, as long as they're not north of a field goal on the road. And then the public is going to see Philadelphia is the best record in the NFL, and I'm getting points. You're darn right. I'm taking them with Philadelphia this week. And forget the points. I'm taking that plus price on the money line.
If you like the Eagles this week, take $1.25.
I would absolutely
take a quarter
agree
or
with
take
that.
$1.30.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
even $1.35 out
now,
there.
Here's the thing that you want to look at in this. And again, I remember yesterday when this game went up at South Point last night after the late kickoffs. Okay. How could you have the 49ers favored? Okay. So they opened 1.5. Well, they laid 1.5 and they laid 2. Now we're at 2.5. By the way, the people that were asking that weren't the ones that were betting that either.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
I know.
This is when you see these moves here, this is early in the week on Sunday night and Monday morning. This is professional money. And again, it doesn't make one right or wrong, one better than the other. It's just the nature of the business and how the betting transpires. Now, the people that laid the 1.5, will they still evaluate what's happening this week? Will they follow the line movements? Will they keep very close tabs on injuries, especially to the Eagles, right? The Eagles have some defensive injuries here. That's another aspect of why we, made this number the way it is as well. Who's healthier right here? Right now, the Niners are healthier. And, is this Eagle team going to continue to their credit, dodge bullets? I mean, they were down 10 twice yesterday, okay? And they were a quarterback and receiver in overtime who one played through the ball. If the ball's thrown inside, okay, or I mean outside.
It's thrown outside.
If it's thrown outside,
it's the
right?
easiest touchdown
So somebody who I don't know who, if it was a misthrown ball or a misguided route, but okay. So that at some point, do you say now this is a better Eagles team than the Vikings team a year ago? Don't get me wrong. However, when you look at how the Vikings, remember last year they won all those games, one-score games, and they won them late. The Eagles continue to do this. Is this going to continue for the rest of the year? Or is it going to be, is it going to normalize starting, get back to the norm starting next year? But again, this is a better team too. This is the best team that the Eagles have played this year. So you put all those factors together. Now, will there be Eagle money? Absolutely. And will it be a heavily bet game?
Should be the biggest one of the day, right?
Well, if it was in the primetime spot where the Chiefs Packers are, it certainly would be. But it will either be one of, at the very least, one of. It may very well be the highest bet game of the day simply because of the matchup and what a lot of folks are forecasting to be the NFC title game this year.
I would, at this rate, Vinny, think there's only 3 teams that are capable of coming out of the NFC. Philadelphia, San Francisco, and Dallas. If it's not one of those 3, something really strange has happened in those playoffs.
Yeah, I think if it's Dallas, for their own psyche, they've got to get a real good win. And that's got to be against probably Philadelphia, right, at home.
Well, Dallas
will get them again, right?
Dallas will have their shot.
Yeah, will.
Because after this week, when they're a 9-point favorite against the Seahawks, They get the Eagles, the Bills, the Dolphins, and the Lions.
There you
4
go.
straight weeks.
There you go.
They're going to have their shots to kill that narrative.
I don't want to say that those are playoff games because when you look at their record, they're going to be a playoff team. But what is their playoff prep, if you will, right, going into the postseason? So to your point, Jeff, which is a good one. Those are important games for them. So yeah,
Vinny, before we let you get back to work, I have to ask because, of course, Alex, UNLV alum, the computers decided UNLV would play Boise State in the Mountain West title game. So, coupling that with all these conference championship games this week, we have 2 here in Las Vegas now.
Right.
The Pac-12 on Friday.
Yes.
Which is now 9.5, down from the 10.
Down from 10.
Kind of as we expected, the Sharps come in, take the 10, pop you down to 9.5, which was the rest of the market. Kind of the conversation Alex and I had yesterday after you guys put the numbers up after the games went yesterday morning. And then you got a whole bunch of interesting games here. Texas is up to 14.
Yes.
Boise, they have taken a little bit of UNLV, now 2 on Boise. Actually, or did they go the other way on
it? So opened at 2.5. It went. They laid to 2.5 yesterday. It went to 3, and now they've
taken it the other way today.
They've taken it the other way. We're down to 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now the one that I'm most we'll get to the Big Ten championship game in a second because that one is just ridiculous in multiple ways. But Alabama's up to 6.
Yes, they laid 5.5.
That's 6 got to be the peak, right?
I wouldn't say it is. I'm not. It wouldn't shock me. And I've been talking about Alabama since, they righted things after not only the Texas loss, but the quarterback flip-flop. Look, you talk about a team that escaped the other day. And Georgia is finally healthy. I think when you look at Georgia in the last month, it's the Georgia that I think everybody was waiting for, offensively and defensively. They've had their receiving core intact now for the last 3 games. So between tight end and wide receiver, they were wide receiver. McConkey was hurt early, right? And then he came back. Tight end goes out, but in the last 3 games, they've been quite complimentary. So I think when you look at Georgia and the body of work, especially in the last month, it doesn't really surprise me. Jeff, a month ago, this game was probably 4, 3.5 or 4. But,
the look at numbers at the beginning of last week were 4.
Were 4, yeah. So, but again, perception is reality to a lot of folks, right? And so when you look at what's fresh in everybody's mind, it's like the Super Bowl number, right?
Sure.
You've got a projected Super Bowl number, and then all of a sudden the second game gets played, right? Whether it's the NFC or the AFC title game, right? Oh my gosh, it was such a dominant performance. You've got to tweak that because that's what's fresh in a lot of folks' minds. So there's an element of that as well. So that's why a lot of times we talk about, hey, Vinny, what do you make this number? Like if you look at this, your power, you start looking at a number. What do you're looking ahead, if the playoff was today and this was a month ago or 2 weeks ago. That's why I always say, hold up, let's see what happens. Let's see how teams come out of it. Let's see how they're performing. Check injuries and things like that. So is it a real shock that they laid the 5.5? No, but I think there'll be support for both teams in this game, but I'm not shocked that it went to 6.
Big weekend. To Jeff's point on Saturday when we were talking about Ohio State and Michigan, that was the playoff.
Yeah,
game,
that was the first round of the playoffs.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And now we've got Oregon and Washington and Georgia and Alabama, so it's going to be a great weekend.
So look at that. I'm glad you brought up the Oregon and Washington game because, it was a field goal. What was it, 5 weeks ago?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
But look at how the teams have trended since that game. Okay? Oregon has been dominant. They shook that loss off. Washington, and again, to their credit, they've won every game, but they've escaped as well to an extent. And again, good teams find a way to win, find a way to escape, whatever. But look at how they've trended. Is it a surprise that they took the 10? No. I mean, but now we know where the dog is going to get some money, and that's fine. But because there's going to be plenty of support for Oregon.
And then I Big Ten and ACC, the late night games. That's what everything's going to go to on Saturday.
Yeah,
and we'll have all week to discuss this as well. Boy, you guys are taking a lot of Louisville action, all the way down to 2.5 now, with Florida State still favored in that.
Yeah,
one.
And again, don't forget the number would have been higher if Jordan Travis
would that have been a full touchdown with what we saw from Rodemaker,
I think it probably 7 or 8 though. I don't know if it would have quite been, even though that Travis is at least a 4-point adjustment. I don't know if we would have hung double digits there, because I think there would have been support for Louisville. But then again, Louisville got beaten in the rivalry game against Kentucky the other day.
Kentucky was the right side.
I mean,
the whole second half.
Kentucky really, they had an answer for everything that Louisville did. And so, and Florida State, actually don't remember, Florida State played with the third string quarterback for in the for part of the fourth quarter, even though it was only a few downs. So, there'll be support. There'll be Seminole money at some point. And again, if they're going for us, that's fine. And again, you mentioned the Michigan game, 24. They took 24 with Iowa. It's down to 23.5. Trust me, there'll be support from Michigan here.
Have we had a year this crazy? Like, say Florida State does win. I know they've always taken undefeated teams, right? But we haven't had a year like this. Do you think there is a chance that they wouldn't put Florida State in if they want the 4 best teams?
You mean the committee?
The committee.
Well, I'm never going to – how do you know what the committee and what pollsters think about, right? Exactly. I mean, look, here to answer that, let's look at how Ohio State – that was a close game the other day against Michigan, right?
It was a flip.
They had a chance to win. The reaction to in the polls is, I could tell you this: there was maybe a point or less adjustment to the power ratings to either one of those, to either Michigan or Ohio State the other day. As far as being undefeated, I think they look at far different things. They're going to consider, like, we'll consider, Travis' injury to the number, but look at what the team's body of work is. I mean, if they come through undefeated, if they come through undefeated, because in the first and second week, I think the committee had them in, correct?
They were 4 for the longest time, and then dipped out after Travis's injury.
Injury,
but that was also,
but they didn't lose.
But that was also coupled with Washington beating a highly ranked team. That's why they flipped that.
Right.
But Washington escaping a couple. Okay, so look at what Washington, and if Washington wins and they're undefeated, if Florida State wins and they're undefeated, Michigan is undefeated, and Georgia's undefeated. In the committee's minds, would they put a one team in, a one-loss team in?
In that scenario,
probably Michigan.
In that scenario, the argument would then go to, let's assume Texas handles their business, which is far from an assumption knowing Sarkisian's history. But the debate in that spot would be Texas versus Florida State, in my opinion, if we got that. If Georgia beat Alabama, if Michigan handles their business.
Well, Alabama would have 2 losses.
Yeah, Alabama's done. Bama's done in that circumstance. Right. Washington beats Oregon again, which would give the Ducks a second loss, then they're done.
They're done.
It would come down to, does the committee put in the undefeated conference champion, or do they put Texas in, whose only loss is by 3 on a last-second drive against their biggest rival, who won 10 games? So that's the real debate that I would be looking at. If we're going solely off, hey, we need to get the 4 best teams in based off of all the teams that off the 5 Power 5 champions, Texas clearly should go over Florida State. But I have no idea if the committee would do. And I know the power ratings would tell you that too, with Texas going over Florida State.
Texas is still behind. Well,
they're what? Probably 7 right now in your ratings, or 6?
I've got Texas. I've got Texas 7.
Okay.
Yeah. I've got Alabama ahead of Texas. Yeah. Still.
Well, you've had Alabama ahead of Texas for a long while.
Yeah. Now. I mean, again, if they were to play each other on a neutral field, even though Texas won the game, Texas wouldn't be favored. Alabama wouldn't be as favored as they were in Tuscaloosa, but they'd probably be, I'd say 2. Yeah. So.
Again, this would have been the year for the 12th team.
Well, it would be nice.
Been the year.
But again, as we as Chris, Jimmy, and I always say, you know what? A couple of things. Put an odds maker on the committee.
Yeah.
But until that happens, just give us the matchups. We'll give you the prices.
By the way, we'll let you go back to work. But I have to say before we go, one of my friends texted me saying that you had tremendous spirit on the show today, Vinny.
Well, again, you listen. Always remember this. Nobody listens and nobody cares if the bookie cries. Not even the bookie's grandmother. Trust me when I tell you. Because grandma probably had all the favorites too. So guess what?
Vinny Magliulo, everyone. Always great to have Vinny in with us. We're gonna keep it here. We'll let Vinny exit stage.
We forgot to bring up Tommy DeVito with you.
Oh,
oh, of course.
Because Frank was talking about it, but
again, always remember this. Here, I'll leave you another one. All right, you ready? I could have laryngitis. I can always communicate.
Oh, man. Vinny's just going to pull a Jimmy and wander
right.
off set.
Don't go in front of the camera.
No,
I leave that for Jimmy.
Back and forth. Vinny, thank you as always for being with us today. All right, Alex, let's just wrap where we started here.
Yes.
Back to the game tonight. I have nothing at this moment on this one. If we somehow see 2.5 pop again, it's not going to happen. I would lay it with Minnesota. But, again, I think you missed. Not I think. You did miss the numbers. If you took Chicago, if you laid it with Minnesota.
What's your feel on the total?
I think it's right. I think the Bears you have to treat as an over team with Fields back now. Again, that game went over a week ago against Detroit.
They did give up 2 touchdowns in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, but it's still got there pretty easily. I mean, it landed 57. That's pretty no doubtish when it's all said and done. But again, the big question mark I have for tonight on the Minnesota side is Josh Dobbs started to turn the ball over last week. So are we going to start seeing a turnover-heavy guy at quarterback? Which, look, he's been an amazing story. He's played very well so far this year, especially for a guy who has almost no starting experience. He was fine in Arizona. He had no talent around him. And he's been genuinely solid so far in his 3 games that he's seen the bulk of the action, 2 starts for Minnesota. The one concern is that does he start turning the ball over, which I could say could very easily start tonight. It could also start here in Las Vegas in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to have a great game here between these two. I do think, I've already said my side. I think the Vikings are going to win this game. As you've said, look for 2.5 if you're going to lay the number with them. But I'm really just worried about the Bears' defense against the pass, whereas Minnesota, they're pretty balanced run and pass defense. So I think that they'll be able to slow down Justin Fields and company here. But yeah, the Bears are running 48% of the time. That's 3rd most in the league, and Minnesota's run defense is almost just as good as Chicago's.
Yeah, and again, I'm just going to stay out of this. Maybe an in-game. If Chicago gets up early, maybe I'll come the other way, take some points with Minnesota. Ryan's laughter in the background. I'm going to say that's Ryan agreeing with me on that tonight with the noted Chicago Bear fan back there. Hey, the Bears trying for 2 top 5 picks. Well in play right now in that one. All right, before we go, there are a few NBA games tonight. There are a few college basketball games tonight. There's a few hockey games tonight. The only thing that I consider tonight on a college basketball card is North Dakota State. Late night in San Jose. That's 7 right now across the board. Was 8 in the overnight. So yet another one where, or actually even touched 9 early this morning at 5 in the morning if you were up at 5 a.m., Alex. I don't know if you were or not. But that was the only thing that was almost okay for me in college hoops. Really a light card there. You mentioned the Knights earlier in the day with Frank. They're on the road in Calgary and a small favorite in that one.
Yeah, I think it's a good spot for the Knights. I know they've lost 3 of their last 4, but it's a bounce-back spot. Calgary has had a rough stretch here. They played in Nashville. Well, first in Seattle, in Nashville, then Colorado. Lost that one to the Avs, and now they're going to host the Golden Knights. So there was ever a time for the Knights to get back on that winning side. Tonight would be a good one. And usually I am up at 5 a.m. That's my workout time. But
there we go.
I slept in a little today.
Oh.
It was, Thanksgiving and everything. Yeah.
By the way, biggest mover in the NBA tonight is because Nikola Jokic is not going to play tonight for Denver.
Okay.
So that's part of the reason that game went from 6 to 10.5 in the Clippers hosting the Nuggets. By the way, we're not here tomorrow, but Frank Nicotero on Punchlines is the final day of the NBA in-season tournament group stage tomorrow. Right now, just so everyone knows, the Pacers have advanced. They won Group A or Group 1, whatever we're calling it in the Eastern Conference side. The Lakers have advanced. They won Group A on the Western Conference side. They're in. It's a shame that the Clippers lost the other night to the Pelicans because we could have had a shot at 2-2 in every single team in the Group B in the West. Houston plays Dallas. If Houston wins that game, they will advance on the virtue of head-to-head record against New Orleans. That'd be, again, this is one fun thing with this in-season tournament. There's a real shot that 2 of the group winners in the Eastern Conference are Indiana and Orlando. Not what we expected going into the year. And Houston, projected to be one of the worst teams in the NBA, could win a group. So this is the one fun thing with this NBA in-season tournament. Get some weird stuff potentially. When it's all said and done, I still think Milwaukee's going to end up winning this in-season tournament. They play Miami tomorrow, where that group is all over the place. Bucks 3-0. Knicks with that epic 20-point comeback on Friday night. Technically ahead of Miami, both at 2-1. So a lot to look forward to tomorrow in the NBA.
Yeah, my dad, he gave out Lakers when we co-hosted Punchlines together, so he really liked them in this in-season tournament. But Milwaukee will be tough if it comes down to those two.
The Lakers will host a game, will host a quarterfinal. We know that. They will host a quarterfinal at Crypto.com. Of course, semifinals here.
Yes.
A little under 2 weeks from now already. That Thursday here in Vegas, followed by 2 days from now at T-Mobile Arena, the championship of the in-season tournament for the NBA Cup. We need a better name than the NBA Cup. We need a better name. By the way, I hate to pile on our guy Ryan McCormick, but why are the Bulls are just a disaster? They're a disaster, the Bulls. Epic disaster at 5-13. But thankfully for them, they're not the Detroit Pistons, who somehow have a 13-game losing streak already.
Wow.
2-14. The Pistons were over 500. They were 2-1.
Oh,
they're now 2-14. By the way, Pistons play the Wizards tonight, which is a spectacular game between two teams that are awful. Pistons favored by 2.
Yeah, what's that total?
237.5. Probably. I know the Wizards are an abomination on both sides. Do we have enough lack of defense to get that game over?
237.
I stumped you on that one. 237.5 on that one. Boy, what a horrible game. 4-28 between the two of them. Combined losing streak of 22 games between the Wizards and the Pistons. Someone's got to win.
Someone's got to win.
Someone's got to win in Motown tonight. All right. We'll say bon voyage here for tonight. Alex, good luck on whatever you may have going tonight. We'll be back on Thursday here on this show, 3 o'clock Pacific time as always. Frank Nicotero, noon Pacific, Tuesday and Wednesday. Frank's back in Vegas tomorrow, right, Ann? He's back in Vegas. He was in L.A. today, hosting the show from L.A., now back in Vegas tomorrow. You'll have to tune in at noon Pacific tomorrow to see what Frank and our guy Ryan McCormick have for you on the show. For Alex White, for Vinny Magliulo, who did a great job as always, I'm Jeff Parles. We will see you again on Thursday on this show at 3 o'clock Pacific time. It's been Sports by the Book. We'll see you on Thursday here at the South Point Studio.